This video, I'm going to be going over EIP-7251, increase the max effective balance. My simplified definition is there's going to allow the network to have fewer validators, but keep the same amount of decentralization, which makes it easier for those validators to coordinate, overall making its network's consensus mechanism more efficient. If that was confusing, hopefully it won't be by the end of this video. First, let's understand the current landscape. In Ethereum's proof-of-stake system, computers from around the world add blocks to the chain and vote to agree on what the correct head of the chain is. The actual computers that participate in this process are called validators. Each validator needs to be started with exactly 32 ETH. However, the people or organization who manage these validators are called operators. Operators are responsible for setting up and managing the software for validators. Operators can manage many validators if they stake more than 32 ETH. For example, Lido operates hundreds of thousands of validators because they have around 10 million ETH staked with them. Or an operator could be a solo staker like you and me, who stake our 32 ETH and manage the setup of just one validator. Now let's talk about the problem. There's a massive mismatch between the number of operators and the number of validators that they manage. For example, let's look at Lido. They have nearly 10 million ETH stake, which translates to over 300,000 validators. Similarly, Coinbase and Binance manage over 100,000 and 60,000 validators, respectively. This imbalance creates unnecessary communication overhead. Since it's the same operator managing all these validators, it doesn't actually add decentralization to the network. Instead, it just adds extra work for the network, like processing redundant votes and signatures. This slows down consensus and makes the network overall less efficient. Why cap validators at 32 ETH in the first place? When Ethereum transitioned from proof of work to proof of stake during the merge, the process was already incredibly complex. At the time, there was an incredible amount of FUD. Many people weren't even sure if proof of stake would work or if the merge would ever happen. To manage this complexity, certain aspects of the design were simplified, with the understanding that they could be upgraded in the future. One such decision was to cap validators at 32 ETH, instead of allowing dynamic starting balances for validators. This uniform starting balance made the initial proof of stake implementation much simpler. This is getting a bit into the technical weeds, but it would feel wrong making a video about the EIP and not explaining what the effective balance is. First, there's the validator balance. This is the total amount of ETH tied to the validator. It starts at 32 ETH and can go up or down based on rewards, penalties, or slashing. You could think of it as the real balance that the validator has. This is the amount an operator would receive if they were to shut down their validator. Then there's the effective balance, which is what the network uses to calculate things like rewards, penalties, and voting weight. If a validator's total balance falls below 32 ETH, the effective balance actually matches the actual balance. But on the other side of things, it's capped at 32 ETH to make calculating rewards and penalties simpler. Moving on to the solution. With this upgrade, Ethereum introduces flexible validator balances. This allows operators with large stakes to consolidate multiple validators into fewer, larger ones. Instead of each validator starting with exactly 32 ETH, balances can now range from 32 to 2048 ETH. This dramatically reduces the number of validators operators like Lido, Coinbase, and Binance need to manage. For example, the number of validators Lido manages could drop to just over 4,800, representing a 98% reduction. Let's go over the key technical changes introduced with this upgrade. First, the starting balance, which was previously fixed at 32 ETH. Balances are now flexible and can range from 32 to 2048 ETH. Also, the slashing penalty has been reduced from 1 over 32 of the effective balance to 1 over 4,096. This is done to ease the risk during the consolidation process. If something does go wrong, the slashing penalty is pretty negligible. Next, withdrawals are switched up. Previously, only full withdrawals were allowed, so you would have to close your validator in order to withdraw ETH. Now, actually, partial withdrawals are possible as long as the balance stays above 32 ETH. Next, the validators that want to exit and enter the beacon chain is also switched up. It's switched from 8 validators per epoch to 256 ETH per epoch, which is the same amount of ETH per epoch, but this needed to be adjusted now that validators actually can have different starting balances. Previously, rewards were actually swept to your withdrawal address once you hit above 32 ETH. Now, with MaxEB being 2048 ETH, rewards can actually auto-compound up until you hit the new MaxEB of 2048. Finally, operators can consolidate their validators by sending a message on the EVM, which proves ownership, and then will close their validators and consolidate the ETH from those validators into one single validator. Now, why would operators want to consolidate their validators? First, partial withdrawals. Before, if an operator needed 10 ETH, they would have to shut down an entire 32 ETH validator. Now, with consolidation, if a validator has at least 42 ETH, they can withdraw 10 ETH from that validator without deactivating it. Next, simplified operations. Fewer validators means easier key management, reducing the risk of mistakes like double signing and lowering administrative overhead. Next, cost efficiency. Fewer validators potentially means lower infrastructure costs. Finally, like I've been talking about all along, network efficiency. Large stakers benefit directly from a more efficient Ethereum network, as their business relies on Ethereum staking. Paul Harris, a Teku core dev, has a fantastic DevCon presentation about this upgrade, which I'll link in the comments. He and other consensus layer devs have been working closely with large stakers to ensure consolidation happens. Now let's look into how this EIP fits into Ethereum's future vision. But before we do, when is this EIP even coming live on the network? Well, in the very next upgrade, Tectra, which is shipping early to mid 2025. Single slot finality is one goal the protocol is striving for, and MaxDB is the first step towards it. Right now, when you send a transaction and you see it confirmed after about 10 seconds, it's technically still at risk of being reorganized out of the chain, and your transaction, poof, it's gone. That's because transactions don't finalize till after around 15 minutes. Of course, no one right now is actually waiting 15 minutes to consider their transaction finalized. With single slot finality, this waiting period is drastically reduced. The protocol will finalize blocks in just seconds, making Ethereum far more user friendly and secure. When you see that confirmation, know that your transaction is not being reorganized out of the chain. It also speeds up rollup interactions. MaxDB plays a role in unlocking this by consolidating the validator set and enabling larger staked validators, which many of the proposed single slot finality designs take advantage of. A 32 ETH minimum staking requirement is a significant barrier for people, limiting participation in staking. Lowering this threshold to 1 ETH would allow more people to participate, increasing the decentralization of the staking operator set. Remember, the amount of people that are actually operating Ethereum validators. The more decentralized the staking operator set is, the harder the network is to attack, as it distributes control amongst a large number of independent parties, reducing the risk of a 51% attack. MaxDB helps enable this by reducing the validator count through consolidation. With fewer validators, the network can officially handle a larger number of smaller sized stake validators, paving the way to lowering the staking thresholds without compromising on security or performance. And that's it. I hope you learned something and see you soon.